The year Ethan was diagnosed with cancer, I had just graduated with only 500 yuan to my name. To save him, I begged everyone on my contact list and managed to scrape together 150,000. But on my way back to the hospital with the money, I received the news of his death. I never got to see Ethan one last time. For the next 5 years, I moved south to work and pay off my debts. The day I finally cleared them, I returned to Seattle. And there, in a hot pot restaurant that Ethan and I used to frequent, I met a man who looked exactly like him. He was now successful with a happy family and a child.
Winter in Seattle is still quite cold. Clutching the only 70 yuan in my pocket, I bought a 69.91 combo meal from a group deal. As I was burying my head in my food, a familiar voice from a nearby table caught my attention. Behind a frosted glass partition, a man in a sharp suit and rimless glasses was gently placing food onto a little girl's plate. At first, I didn't think much of it. It wasn't until I saw the mole at the corner of his eye and his increasingly familiar features that I shot up from my seat. I stared at the man, losing my composure. "Ethan, is that you?" Amidst the noise, the man seemed to hear someone call his name. He looked up and our eyes met. In that single glance, the emotion in his eyes shifted from confusion to shock and then to a cold, reddened indifference. "Chloe, long time no see?" I sat stiffly across from the man and the little girl. Ethan had already composed himself, resuming the task of picking out food from the hot pot for the child. "Would you like some vinegar?" he asked, his eyes on the sesame sauce in my bowl. I love sour flavors. Whenever Ethan and I had hot pot, he would always prepare a small dish of vinegar for me. But over the years, my sense of taste for many things has dulled. I shook my head. I didn't know how to start the conversation. You were actually okay back then? A dozen different questions ran through my mind, but I settled on the most delicate one. Ethan knew exactly what I was asking. His fingers paused for a moment and he gave a slight nod, as if responding to something trivial, something far less significant than life and death. 5 years ago, from faraway New York City, I transferred the money I had borrowed directly into Ethan's bank account. But as I was rushing back to Seattle, I received an obituary notice. Ethan had passed away from sudden liver failure. It was minus 17 degrees Celsius that night. I stood frozen outside the train station in my thin coat, numb from the cold. I couldn't believe it. I had only been gone for 3 days and Ethan hadn't made it? The obituary was sent by Ethan's mother, who had always despised me. I called her, my voice hoarse, begging her to tell me where the funeral was. She hung up on me without a word. It made sense. When Ethan was alive, his parents looked down on me for my rural background. After he died, they wouldn't let me anywhere near him. "Then, why did you lie to me?" I asked, my eyes red as I pressed for an answer. Ethan's expression was strained. His lips were sealed in a tight, silent line. A vibration of a phone broke the stalemate. On my screen, Ethan's account was still pinned to the top of my chat list. He hadn't used it for 5 years, but every day and every night I sent messages to that account. Even a picture of the combo meal I had just bought, a trivial detail, was sent. Over time, it had become my diary. All the grievances, big and small, all the unbearable moments I endured while paying off my debt were poured out there. Ethan seemed to have seen my screen. He let out a cold laugh, then looked up at me. "Because, Chloe, I can't forget. And I can't forgive you." "What?" "I can't forget that you ran away the day I was wheeled into the ICU.
I froze. What do you mean? When had I ever run away? That year, when I received Ethan's death notice, I desperately found an unlicensed car to rush back to Seattle. Taking the train would have taken 3 days, and I couldn't wait. But no one could have predicted how heavy the snow would be that year, so heavy that both the highways and railways were closed. By the time I finally reached the hospital in Seattle, a new strain of flu was raging. The hospital was in chaos. Most of the attending doctors and nurses had already been sent to assist elsewhere. I never got to see him one last time, nor could I attend his funeral. I was a lost soul. I fell into a deep depression for a long time, and just when I thought I was about to be crushed by my mental illness, a message demanding payment arrived from Julian. He was my arch rival in high school, yet he was the only one who had been willing to lend me money. I dragged myself out of bed with a single thought in my mind: pay back this money. It would be the last thing I could do for Ethan. I didn't run, Ethan. I went to NYC to borrow money to save you. Go check your bank records for January 7th of that year. That transfer, that was for me. Tears streamed down my face. I explained through choked sobs, but the bitterness in my throat wouldn't dissipate. In all my years away, I had forgotten how to cry, but for some reason, seeing his face brought back the memory of Ethan in the ICU, his hand on my cheek, gently comforting me. He had said, "I'm okay, Chloe. You take care of yourself." He had said, "If I don't make it, just forget me and start a new life." Back then, I clung to the bed rail, shaking my head frantically, begging him not to leave me, because besides Ethan, there was no one else in this world who would be good to me. My parents divorced when I was young, and no one cared for me. I couldn't even afford tuition for my 4 years of college. It was Ethan who shared his scholarship money and part-time job earnings with me. Only then was I able to get by with some dignity. He was my only lifeline in a boundless ocean. Overwhelmed with emotion, I grabbed Ethan's hand tightly, just like that day. I was plunged back into a bottomless despair. It wasn't until a child's voice broke the spell that I came back to my senses. The little girl stared at me with wide, dark eyes, her innocence a stark contrast to the words that sent a chill down my spine. "Auntie, how can you lie? My mommy gave him that money. Mommy said she borrowed it from a friend." As her words fell, Ethan, whose eyes had been turning red, instantly regained his composure. He pulled his wrist away and looked at me with detached coldness. "Chloe, please have some self-respect. Over the years, I've thought about it. Faced with a seriously ill partner, perhaps any rational person would run away. But Chloe, I never wanted you to save me with money. All I wanted was for you to be with me in my final moments. But you disappeared the very next day. Now that I'm alive and well, let's not disturb each other anymore." With that, Ethan took a deep breath. He placed the last plate of beef into the pot. It used to be his favorite, but he would always save it for me. After a moment, I looked down and smiled, a sense of release washing over me. So much time had passed. It was time for us both to start new lives. But before that, the past couldn't be left unresolved. I wiped my tears, slowly bent down, and asked the little girl in front of me with a smile, "Little one, what's your mommy's name?" The girl grew wary. She turned her head away from me and clung to Ethan's arm, but she still mumbled the name. "Claire." "Oh, is that so?" I sat back down. Claire. Ethan's adopted sister. No blood relation. When Ethan and I were together in college, she was always hostile towards me. I could even say that her parents' dislike for me was part of her doing. The little games girls play might fool men, but we could see right through each other. I had seen her special feelings for Ethan long ago, but because Ethan had always treated her as a sister, she took her frustrations out on me. The money transfer that year came from a bank in NYC, under a stranger's name, so it was indeed easy for someone to take credit for it. "Ethan, since you both claim Claire gave you the money, can she produce the transfer receipt?" Hearing this, Ethan's gaze faltered, his earlier certainty wavering. "If she can't, do you think you, the person who ran away, can?" "Chloe, have some self-respect. After all, your acting even fooled me. My hand trembled as I put down my chopsticks. I finally laughed, but my heart felt like a tethered cloth, weeping silently. The person I had spent 5 years and my self-respect to save had turned out to be a complete misunderstanding. In his eyes, I was nothing but a liar, a rotten person with no bottom line. I can produce it. And Ethan, the past is the past. I won't bother you anymore. But I can't stand someone taking credit for what I did. The end of our meeting was not pleasant. Ethan took a call and left. The ring on his left ring finger glinted under the lights. I didn't ask if he was married. I just wretchedly slipped the silver ring I had been wearing off my finger and hid it in my sleeve. It was the ring Ethan had bought for me 8 years ago with half a year's worth of tutoring money. I had never taken it off all these years, and its edges were now oxidized and black. I finished the last meatball from my combo meal, paid the bill, and left the hot pot restaurant. I thought, I probably won't be coming back here again. Outside, I took out my phone and contacted Julian. We hadn't spoken since I paid off the last of my debt a month ago. That year, after Ethan was rushed to the emergency room with severe jaundice due to acute liver and kidney failure from a drug reaction, I stood by the window and kept watch all night. I had also asked everyone in my contacts. In the end, I only managed to borrow 200 yuan. It was expected. I didn't have many friends or family. But with no other options, I contacted my high school arch rival, a rich kid named Julian, just to try my luck. 150,000? Sure. But you have to come to NYC to get it. In high school, we had clashed over a nomination spot. No one in school dared to provoke this wealthy heir. But with parents who didn't love me and nothing to lose, I feared nothing. I got into a desperate fight with him. The scar on his forehead was my doing. In the end, I was disciplined and nearly expelled while he walked away unscathed. When I arrived in NYC, at the location he gave me, Julian was sitting at the far end of a private room, surrounded by a crowd. I can lend it to you, but you have to kneel. He looked at me with a playful expression, his tone arrogant and cold. He once said, "Chloe, you're the most stubborn person I've ever met, and the only one who dares to stand up to me. You're interesting." At the time, I didn't understand what he meant. I just thought rich people were strange, getting beat up and then complimenting the person for being interesting. But this time, he was making me kneel in public. It was a clear attempt to completely crush my dignity. I had no other options. Amidst the jeers and contempt, I kneeled straight down on the floor. I can't quite remember the temperature of the floor against my knees that day. I only remember that amidst the chaos, Julian, looking bored, called a halt to the others. His expression was like someone who had found a beloved old toy only to see it was missing its arms and legs. He told me to look up. He casually tossed a cigarette at my feet. He asked, "Is it worth it for a man?" Back then, I answered without hesitation. It is. But if he were to ask me now, the answer would have to be no. Seeing this, he clicked his tongue in annoyance. Then he made a call and asked for my bank information. 150,000 will be transferred today. I'll pay you back. My whole body trembled as I clutched the hem of my pants. The look in his eyes grew darker and more inscrutable. "Julian, do you still have the record of that transfer from 5 years ago?" About half an hour later, a message came back. "I can probably find it. What's up?" "I need it. Don't feel like looking. Too much trouble." I hesitated for a moment, but finally told him, "Ethan isn't dead. Someone else took credit for the money. I need proof." The other end went quiet for a moment. Then he replied,
There are that many scumbags in the world? I'm in Seattle right now. I'll let you know when I find it. Come and get it from me. Okay.
Julian was highly efficient. The next afternoon, he arranged to meet me at the most upscale restaurant in Seattle. In the crowd, Julian was still being fawned over, his expression arrogant. But this time, it was a formal occasion. He was in a suit, seated at the head of the round table. The G family is planning to open an investment firm in Seattle. I'll be staying here for a long time, so I hope for your support in the future. I stood foolishly outside the door, watching him raise his glass, his brow high with confidence and ambition. My feet timidly stepped back, a pang of envy rising in my heart for some reason. I only went in after the guests had left. Amidst the leftover food, the red star of his cigarette glowed and faded. He glanced at me, then pulled a receipt from his pocket. The date on it showed January 7th, 5 years ago, a transfer of 150,000 yuan into Ethan's bank account. I'll have my assistant send you the digital copy later. Okay, thank you. With the proof in hand, I turned to leave. Wait. Julian's deep voice stopped me. His eyes narrowed as he watched me. You're just leaving? Aren't you going to show some appreciation? How do you want me to show it? I stopped, my tone calm. The man reached up and loosened his tie, then lowered his head as if in serious thought. How about this? Come work for the G family's investment firm. We need people in the early stages. Hearing this, I was stunned. My fingers nervously clutched the sleeve of my coat. Julian, you've got the wrong person. I don't have the experience. He raised an eyebrow. Oh? Why do I remember a certain someone graduating top of her class in finance from the University of Washington? And UW's finance program is consistently ranked in the top 3 nationally. Julian's tone was even carrying a rare hint of approval. But my heart sank. In college, with Ethan's help, I had focused on getting top grades and participating in international competitions. My plan was to go to grad school and then work as an intern at an investment bank, completely changing my life. But Ethan's sudden illness and death shattered everything. To pay back the debt, I couldn't go to grad school as planned, and because the finance industry has high academic requirements, with most positions starting at a master's degree, I couldn't get a suitable job, even as a top student in my major. After much thought, I decided to seek opportunities in the then booming e-commerce industry. To this day, I have strayed too far from my original path. I just don't understand. Julian, why are you helping me like this? He heard me and chuckled. You misunderstand. I'm not helping you. You work for me. You provide the labor. I provide the money. He said it as if it were the most natural thing in the world, but I knew that Julian could easily find someone more suitable and cost-effective in the job market. But still, I didn't want to get too involved with Julian anymore. He had helped me, and I was grateful, but I also couldn't forget the sight of him looking down on me as I knelt. No thanks. I won't starve to death working elsewhere. I looked down. I clutched the receipt in my pocket and tried to leave. Chloe, how long are you going to cling to your worthless pride? Look at you, a broke mess who can't even scrape together $10. Don't you want to turn your life around? Julian's sudden anger stunned me. Turn my life around? The phrase felt so foreign that even whispering it to myself felt like a luxury. In an instant, the sting of his words brought tears to my eyes, and I retorted loudly. Julian, what does a pampered rich boy like you know? My life is already a pile of mud. So what if I graduated top of my class from UW? I'm almost 30, and like you said, I'm so broke that after paying off my debt, I can't even afford next month's rent. Every step I've taken in the past few years has been utterly ridiculous, hasn't it? The memories of drinking until I threw up blood just to survive, of being threatened and gaslit by my boss to get my rightful commission, and the shame of returning to my tiny 10-square-meter rented room to devour a discounted supermarket meal, it all again crushed my fragile self-esteem. Julian froze when he saw my reaction. For a moment, his brow softened. The ferocity in his eyes subsided, but it was replaced by a condescending look. Fine, Chloe. If you want to wallow in self-pity, I won't stop you. He turned his head away, no longer looking at me, a mocking smile on his lips. Julian swept his bangs aside, revealing a hideous scar.
It was from the fight we had all those years ago. His forehead had hit the corner of a desk hard. Blood had dripped on my cloth shoes, and I had to wash them over and over to get the stain out. Later, I was disciplined by the school, and my guaranteed admission to UW was revoked. But at the time, it didn't affect me. I believed I could get into UW on my own through the entrance exams. In the end, I graduated at the top of my high school class and entered the most popular major that year, finance. But now, for some reason, that scar seemed even more menacing 10 years later. It was like a demon's grin mocking my current cowardice. Until the wild, fearless girl I once was tore through that grin and stood before me. She berated me for being a useless, self-pitying coward. She stared at me, demanding to know what I was so afraid of. That's right. What was I afraid of? Could things get any worse than they had been before? The answer was no. They couldn't. Finally, I clenched my fist and said to Julian, "Julian, I'm in. I want to turn my life around." Julian's standards for me were high. He had me brush up on my theoretical knowledge, understand the current market, and study case after case. During my initial internship period, he would only pay me the same salary as a fresh graduate. If you want to climb the ladder, you have to rely on yourself. He glanced at my resume and left me with those words. And on this day, as I was staying up late to study, the double vibration of my phone interrupted my thoughts. It was from Ethan, from that long-abandoned account. At 4 in the morning, he sent a message, then immediately retracted it. I picked up my phone, swiping through it a few times, a little puzzled. Why would he log into this old account now? But then again, I had just gotten the transfer receipt and was wondering how to contact him. This solved my problem. I sent the digital copy of the receipt to Ethan, but there was no reply. Confused, I sent him another message the next morning. This time, I was more careful and didn't mention the physical copy of the receipt. "If you're free, let's meet tomorrow at noon." This time, he replied instantly, "Okay."
The place Ethan chose to meet was a Western restaurant in the city center. I was nearly late rushing over from the office. The restaurant's decor was high-end, with a man in a tuxedo playing the piano in the center. I pushed open the door and searched for Ethan. To the side, a man and a woman were seated at a table by the window. The woman wore an apricot-colored dress, her hair loosely pinned up, her makeup soft and gentle. Her features were somewhat familiar. Claire? What was she doing here? I took a deep breath, put down my bag, and sat down in front of them with a blank expression. I had assumed that once I sent the transfer receipt, everything would be cleared up. I didn't expect Ethan's gratitude. But I also didn't expect him to be looking at me with such hostility. I gripped the chain of my bag, nervously placing my phone on the table. "Ethan, I told you I could produce the proof. You should have seen it by now." As soon as I finished speaking, a look of confusion crossed the man's face. But before he could speak, a waiter approached. At the edge of our table, there was a decorative channel designed to look like a small stream filled with water. The young waiter was about to pour me some tea, but as he lifted the teapot, his arm accidentally knocked my phone. It fell, with a splash, right into the channel. Seeing this, I quickly bent down to retrieve my soaked phone. When I picked it up, it wouldn't turn on. It was a 4 or 5-year-old phone, already prone to minor issues. After this fall, I didn't know if it could be fixed. "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to. Miss, would you like me to take it to the front desk to try and blow dry it, see if it turns on?" The waiter's face was flushed, his eyes filled with anxiety. Without thinking much, I shook my head in frustration. "No need. I'll take a look at it myself later." After the short interruption, I sat up straight, no longer wanting to dwell on their expressions or words. I pulled the physical receipt out of my pocket and handed it to Ethan. "Here. This is the transfer receipt from the bank in NYC from that year. Verify it and you'll know it's real." Ethan looked down, his expression unreadable behind his glasses. Just then, Claire leaned in. After all this time, her face no longer held the rustic, unrefined look, or the self-conscious timidity that used to be hidden in her eyes. She seemed relaxed and at ease.
She glanced at the receipt, a dismissive smile instantly appearing on her lips. Chloe, you're still the same as ever, always faking things. How come this receipt of yours looks exactly like mine? Who did you get to steal it from me? Exactly like hers? I was stunned. I didn't understand what she meant. I got this receipt from Julian. How could she possibly have one too? Besides, even on Ethan's transaction record, the payer's information only included a name, not the full bank account number. But the receipt had the complete number. It was inconceivable that Claire could have faked that. What do you mean? A sense of unease crept into my heart. Suddenly, amidst Claire's cryptic smile, I recalled the early morning when I sent the digital receipt. Ethan hadn't replied, but the next day when I suggested meeting, he replied immediately. As I was lost in thought, Claire took out her phone from her bag. On her screen was a digital receipt identical to the one I held. I understood. The person who had accidentally sent me a message in the middle of the night wasn't Ethan, but Claire. She had seen the digital receipt I sent first, then she pretended she had gotten it herself, creating another lie. Do you have anything else to say, Chloe? Ethan clutched my physical receipt tightly. The disappointment and hatred in his eyes were about to spill over. I looked down and let out a soft laugh. After all these years, Claire still had to be a thorn in my side, never giving me a moment of peace. I do. Did you log into your old account in the last few days? Ethan frowned, then a look of pity entered his eyes. He'd probably seen the tens of thousands of messages detailing the hardships of my life over the past few years. Even I didn't have the courage to read them again. A pang of sorrow was about to rise in my heart, but my rational mind pulled it back. Yes. Then let me see the screen. The man was confused, but he complied. Beside him, Claire shifted uncomfortably, but her face still wore a look of triumphant confidence. On Ethan's phone, sure enough, the message with the digital receipt was gone. So, the message was indeed seen by Claire first and then deleted. Coming back to my senses, I suddenly remembered I could use the records on my own phone as proof. But as I reached for it, I remembered it had just fallen into the water and wouldn't turn on. I sighed. Claire had planned this thoroughly. That waiter probably acted on her instructions, intentionally knocking my phone over. Originally, I came here just to prove that I hadn't run away and that the $150,000 was indeed from me. Ethan had helped me for 4 years. If he had truly been kept in the dark, then once this misunderstanding was cleared up, I didn't want any further involvement. But now looking at Claire's smug face, a flicker of hatred ignited in my chest. Ethan, are you two married? I abruptly changed the subject. My gaze fell on their matching wedding rings, and I asked without flinching. The man was silent, but Claire, blushing shyly, admitted, "Not yet, but we're engaged." Hearing this, I looked down and smiled faintly. During the most romantic years of my youth, Ethan had told me countless times, "Chloe, I can't imagine marrying anyone but you." Scene after scene of our love story flashed through my mind, only to be torn into shreds. All right, Ethan, I have one last question for you. Are you with her because she came up with that $150,000? My voice was already hoarse, but I still wanted to get a clear answer. This was the only love I had ever known. I thought I had chosen the right person and was willing to pay the price for my devotion. But it seemed, in the end, it was all just my own delusion. Ethan folded his hands. He looked at me coldly. I couldn't name the brand of his watch, but it was likely a luxury item we could never have afforded in the past. Yes, Claire saved my life. I would die for her, let alone marry her. Hearing this, I finally relaxed my shoulders, a sense of release washing over me. I pulled a bank card out of my pocket. This is the card used to transfer the $150,000 to Ethan. Ethan, Claire keeps saying she asked a friend to transfer the money. Then why is this card in my hands?
The moment I spoke, Ethan's composed expression shattered. He could clearly see the number on the card matched the one on the receipt. This was evidence harder than stone. Anyone would be speechless. And the woman beside him, her eyes wide, stood up in a panic and reached for the card. "Chloe, give it to me." I immediately snatched it back into my pocket. "Don't bother, Claire. No matter how many stories you make up, it's useless. I can produce the receipt, I can produce the bank card, and I can even bring the person who made the transfer here. Can you please stop acting? It's disgusting." Seeing this, Claire could no longer contain her emotions. Her eyes red, she grabbed Ethan's hand and pleaded, "Ethan, she stole it. Chloe stole it from me. Don't believe her. My friend gave me that bank card a while ago, and I forgot to take it out. A few days ago, Mia's mom reminded me about it, and I started looking, but I couldn't find it anywhere. Chloe must have stolen it." Ethan's eyes flickered with turmoil. He tried hard to remain calm, but his eyes were bloodshot with anger. He shouted, "Claire, we're at this point, and you still think I'm a fool? If you had proof, you would have shown it long ago. You wouldn't have dragged this out for 5 years without producing anything. But I always thought of you as my sister. Even without blood ties, we were family. I believed you and my parents wouldn't lie to me, but I never imagined." At this, Ethan looked at me with a pained expression, his chest heaving. Tears streamed down his face like broken strings. Ethan reached out a trembling hand, trying to grab mine, but I stepped back, creating distance between us. "Chloe, I never expected it either. When I woke up from my illness, my parents and Claire told me you had run away. They said you heard how serious my condition was and just took off. I waited for you in the ICU for 3 days, but you never came, so I believed them. They said the money that saved my life was borrowed by Claire from a friend in NYC, and that's how I was pulled back from the brink. I'm sorry. I didn't choose to believe you back then. I didn't wait longer. I'm sorry. I read the messages you sent me over and over. Every time I read them, I can barely breathe. I'm sorry. I really never forgot you either." Ethan stood before me, his eyes red, unable to form a complete sentence. He just kept begging me to believe he had his reasons, that he had thought of me all these years. But I stood there, unmoved, a cold observer. "Ethan, you couldn't even wait 3 days. But I spent 5 whole years paying back that $150,000. Isn't that ironic?" I glanced at his engagement ring. "Since you're engaged, don't say these things anymore. I hope we never see each other again." Ethan shook his head in agony. He stepped forward, wanting to say more, but I didn't want to hear it. I picked up my bag, ready to leave, because at 2 in the afternoon, Julian said there was an important meeting. I couldn't miss it. Walking out of the restaurant, my heart was still racing. I hadn't originally planned to borrow the card from Julian, thinking the receipt would be enough proof. But Ethan's strange behavior, the message in the middle of the night, and his subsequent reaction was too odd. I didn't want to be impersonated or misunderstood again, so this time I was more careful. I borrowed the card from Julian in advance. The card belongs to Julian's older brother, Connor, and hadn't been used in a long time. It was specially mailed from NYC. Throughout the entire afternoon meeting, my mind was elsewhere. The shock from lunch was too great, and I couldn't immediately get into a professional state. Julian noticed and shot me several displeased looks. Only then did I slowly pull myself together and follow the content of the meeting. Finally, after 3 hours, Julian concluded the meeting. He quickly walked up behind me and said in a low voice, "The company is taking on a project with a partner in NYC in a few days. I was planning to have you join, but it seems like with your current state, you'd just be slacking off." I turned around and immediately said, "I'm sorry. I was a bit distracted during the meeting. That was my fault. Please let me participate. I promise this won't happen again." My tone was firm because I needed this opportunity. After spending so much time reviewing past knowledge and skills, I realized I still wanted to develop my career in this industry. I couldn't let this chance slip away. Julian's brow relaxed a bit. Perhaps seeing my previously dedicated attitude, he relented. "Don't let it happen again."
After work, I went to the phone repair shop to pick up my water-damaged phone. On the way, I kept praying it would last until my probation period was over. As soon as I became a permanent employee, I could get a new phone. I stood at the counter, a little overjoyed to see the phone turn on normally. But the next second, a text message popped up. It was a transfer notification. From Ethan. I stared at the screen, stunned. I counted the zeros. $1.5 million. My heart sunk. Due to the delay, another text from Ethan popped up. This one filled the entire screen. I didn't read it in detail. It was mostly apologies, reminiscing, and a desire for redemption. The wind outside was a bit strong. I wrapped my scarf tighter and walked to my usual noodle shop. The owner greeted me warmly. "Chloe, you're here. The usual, a bowl of clear noodle soup?" I nodded. But then I added, "Wait, boss, add a chicken leg today." "You got it." The NYC project was scheduled for the latter half of the month. Julian ultimately decided to let me participate. The initial preparation was tedious. Since it was my first practical experience, there was still a lot I didn't know, so I often worked late into the night. One day, my colleague Lou, who was also working overtime, sighed beside me. "Chloe, have you heard? A new manager is being parachuted into our department tomorrow. I heard he's young, but even stricter and more demanding than the old geezers at his previous company. I feel like our good days are over." I rubbed my dry eyes and slurped down the last of my Americano. I replied nonchalantly, "Well, it's not like we're having a great time now anyway. It's all the same." All right, that's true too. But the next day, when I saw the new department head, I really felt like my good days were over. Ethan, dressed in a custom-tailored suit, stood in front of the large screen, introducing himself and starting the first department meeting. He scanned the room, his eyes landing on me without surprise. I rolled my eyes at him and he awkwardly looked away. The meeting didn't cover anything important. I sat below, trying to calm myself down for a long time. Finally, I accepted Ethan's appearance as an unavoidable part of my job and continued to listen. "I've just arrived. How about a department dinner tonight?" he proposed from the front. "Everyone will be there, right? You're not going to snub me on my first day?" He said this with a smile, but his eyes were testingly looking in my direction. I raised my hand with a blank expression. "Sorry, I have something tonight. I'd like to take a leave." "May I ask what it is?" Ethan's expression fell slightly, but he still asked gently. "My dog is sick. I need to take it to the vet." I made up a random excuse. "Oh, I see." Just then, a shadow fell over me from behind. I turned around to see Julian standing behind me at some point. "Chloe, which vet clinic? I'll have my assistant go. Manager Shen just arrived. Don't be disrespectful." He placed a hand on my shoulder, but his words left no room for refusal. "I happen to be free. I'll go with you guys." "No, Mr. G, you—" He made a shushing gesture. I turned back, speechless. Now I had to go whether I wanted to or not. Julian knew about my history with Ethan. I wasn't sure how much Ethan knew, so I had no idea what game Julian was playing. Because of this, the entire meal was tasteless, even my favorite barbecue. I stared at the sizzling beef on the grill, listening to my colleagues flatter Ethan. Undeniably, Ethan had been outstanding since his student days. After recovering and working in the business world for a few years, it was natural for him to progress faster than many others. Julian sat next to me, a cool, detached smile on his face. He frequently stepped out to take calls and barely ate anything. After 2 long hours, the dinner finally ended. Our group walked to the underground parking garage, ready to head home. I let out a sigh of relief, finally able to relax. But as I looked up, a woman was waiting at the entrance to the parking garage. It was Claire.
She wore a camel-colored coat, her curly hair cascading down her back. Seeing us approach, she didn't say a word. She locked onto my position in the crowd and walked straight towards me. Then she raised her hand to strike. Julian moved to my side, grabbing her arm tightly, his eyes filled with obvious anger. "Who are you?" Claire struggled a few times. "None of your business. Let go. I'm going to slap this bitch today." The crowd parted as Ethan, his face grim, walked over. "Sorry, this is my sister." Claire froze. Hearing the word sister, she turned around in disbelief. "Ethan, what do you mean? I'm your fiancé." She raised her hand, frantically showing off her diamond ring to the crowd. "I'm really his fiancé." I looked down. My eyes fell on Ethan's left hand. The ring he used to wear was gone. In its place was a simple silver band. I let out a small, silent laugh. So, he hadn't thrown away that ring, but I had thrown mine away a few days ago. "Ethan, did you switch to this company for her? Why are you still so obsessed with Chloe? We have Mia, we're engaged, why won't you choose me?" The parking garage instantly filled with Claire's hysterical screams. She gasped for breath, pulling at her hair in agony. The colleagues nearby all stepped back. Julian spoke to them in a low voice. "You should all leave now." The colleagues hesitated, clearly wanting to see more of the drama, but since the boss had spoken, they had no choice. I came back to my senses. So the little girl really was Ethan's child. Although I had suspected it, I was still a little surprised. Because in all the years Ethan and I were together, even though he helped me through college, the furthest we ever went was kissing. He said he wouldn't have sex with me before marriage, that he had to be responsible for my future. At the time, I thought Ethan was traditional and responsible, someone I could entrust my life to. But I never thought. He already had a child with Claire. When most people had left, Ethan finally spoke. "Claire, I've told you many times. Mia was an accident. I was drunk and unconscious that night. When I woke up the next day, you were suddenly in my bed. That year, I told you countless times to have an abortion, but you wanted to have the baby. So I was willing to take responsibility and raise Mia. Isn't that enough?" He explained the origin of Mia in detail. After he finished, he gave me another pained glance. "But Ethan, you're Mia's father. We should be a family, shouldn't we?" Claire had calmed down a bit, her words now laced with a hint of pleading. Ethan laughed coldly. "Don't forget, you and my parents were the ones who lied to me and deceived me, causing Chloe and me to—" He was cut off by Julian. "If you two are going to air your dirty laundry, Chloe and I are leaving." Julian, who had been silent, leaned against the wall with his arms crossed, looking impatient. Then his gaze fell on me. "Shall we?" I nodded. I quickly followed him. I ignored the pleas and arguments behind me.
"Which vet clinic? I'll give you a ride." Julian stood by a black sedan and asked, "No need. I don't have a dog." He glanced at me but didn't say anything else. "Then I'll take you home." "Thanks, boss." My tone was a bit sarcastic. Julian noticed and his brow furrowed in annoyance. He drove for a while, then pulled over by the river. He took out a cigarette from his pocket and rolled down the window. "I'm having a smoke. Be my guest." "Are you mad at me?" I looked at him and didn't hide it. "Yes, you knew about my history with him, yet you insisted I come to the dinner. I can't control company arrangements, but can't I even refuse a dinner?" Julian let out a soft laugh but didn't respond. He just looked down, took a deep drag, and then stared out the window. "Chloe, do you believe someone can do that when they're drunk?" "That's how it always happens in TV shows." "That's TV. In reality, when a man is drunk, a certain part of him can't possibly." Hearing this, I put my emotions aside and narrowed my eyes. "What do you mean? Are you saying Ethan was lying? That they did it more than once?" Julian glanced at me. "Is that the only possibility?" I was silent for a moment. Following his line of questioning, I continued to think. Well, could it be that the child isn't Ethan's? This kind of plot was common in trashy TV dramas and novels. But a cold sweat broke out on my back.
I recalled the little girl from that day. She did bear some resemblance to Ethan. But Mia really does look like Ethan, so she must be... Wait. Suddenly, a memory flashed in my mind. It was 5 years ago. After helping Ethan with his hospital admission, I was eating my lunch in a secluded pavilion near the inpatient building. Just then, 2 people walked out from the nearby corner. It was Ethan's father, Peter, and Claire. I only remember Peter was smiling while Claire was looking down, lost in thought. The scene was so ordinary that I didn't think much of it at the time. But now, everything was connected. A terrible thought took root in my mind. Julian seemed to have already guessed it. He stubbed out his cigarette. He gave me a weary look. Chloe, you should have the answer in your heart by now. I nodded, my expression grim. Julian sat up, reached into the overhead compartment and pulled out a few photos. A closer look revealed they were photos of Claire and Peter entering and leaving a hotel together. Claire was adopted by the Shen family. Their relationship was not only inappropriate, but possibly constituted assault. Who knew how long it had been going on? But this is as far as I'll go. Chloe, whether you want to do something with this is your decision. If you do, I can help you. I suppressed the turmoil inside me and spoke, my voice trembling slightly. Julian, why are you helping me with everything, from my career to my personal life? Julian didn't look at me again. He started the car, a cold smile on his lips. You hit me once. It's one thing for me to bully you a bit. But you have no beef with the Shen family? What right do they have to bully you like that? As he said this, a fierce look entered Julian's eyes. The veins on the back of his hand gripping the steering wheel bulged.
After that night, Claire added me as a friend. She didn't say anything, but over the next few days, she posted a series of updates. There were photos of her at various high-end restaurants, photos from events she attended, and if you scroll down, photos of her and Ethan. I knew she was trying to show off to me. After Ethan found out the truth, his attitude towards her would naturally change. Anxious and insecure, Claire had resorted to confronting people and now adding me. It was from Claire's feed that I learned she had become a minor celebrity over the years, with hundreds of thousands of followers online by creating a mother-daughter image with Mia. But a quick search revealed that due to her arrogant and domineering personality, she often clashed with other bloggers of the same type. I sat at my computer, holding the photos in my hand. After some thought, I clicked on the profile of a blogger who had recently been in a fierce fight with Claire, a woman who made meals for her son. Her online persona was also very fiery. At first, this woman, Angel Liam's mom, was surprised and cautious about my contact. But that very night, Claire happened to be in her own comment section, passive-aggressively calling her son fat as a pig. Unable to tolerate it any longer, Liam's mom bought the photos from me at a high price, earning me a nice sum. The next day, during the evening rush hour, as I was squeezing through the crowd to get a bowl of noodles, I saw a trending topic about Claire. The topic was on a secondary list. Previously, Claire and Ethan were engaged, so the online narrative had always been that Ethan was Mia's father. They had never publicly disclosed that they were adopted siblings with no blood relation. So the initial trending topics were about Claire's affair. But as netizens dug deeper, they discovered that Ethan and Claire were siblings in name, and the man she was having an affair with was Ethan's father, Peter. More and more ethically challenging revelations emerged, pushing the topic's popularity higher and higher. By the time I finished my overtime and took the last subway home, Claire, seeing the situation was dire, had already issued a clarification. I am the adopted daughter of the Shen family and have no blood relation to Ethan. This child is Ethan's and has nothing to do with Peter. Her clarification was simple, just insisting that the child was Ethan's. Netizens didn't buy it. What's the point of just saying it? Show us the paternity test. Do you think we're that easy to fool? If it were really your fiancé's, you would have gotten proof from a hospital long ago.
I never liked this woman from the start. She's so malicious, calling a little kid a pig. I don't know how she got famous, but now she's finally crashed and burned. Amid a sea of insults and questions, Claire, a departure from her usual arrogant and aggressive online behavior, didn't respond to anything. She was probably trying to let the storm blow over. Later that night, Claire closed her comment section and the buzz did indeed die down a bit. But the next morning, pushed by some unknown force, the topic flared up again. With a large number of reports, Claire's account was muted. Seeing this, I raised my eyebrow. Liam's mom had sent me many messages, thanking me. She said that after the story broke, many people supported her, and she even gained tens of thousands of followers online. She then transferred another 100,000 to me as a thank you. I didn't refuse. After all, selling the photos to her was a win-win for both of us. That night, as I was finishing up my work, showered, and ready for bed, I received a call. It was from Ethan. Why was he calling me at this hour? I hesitated, but still answered. The other end was silent, only the sound of intermittent breathing. What is it? If you're not going to say anything, I'm hanging up. Wait, Chloe. Ethan's voice was a bit hoarse. He spoke slowly, a hint of drunkenness in his words. Chloe, do you hate me? Yes. Do you hate me for not believing you back then? Yes. The voice on the other end grew more and more choked. I'm sorry. The sound of wind suddenly rushed in, making it hard to hear anything. In these 3 months, I had gradually forgotten what happened that winter 5 years ago. The busyness of being immersed in my career seemed to have pulled me out of that nightmare. Serious illness, death, deception, lies, countless scenes and ugly truths I didn't want to remember were finally extracted from my life. In their place, the image of my old self gradually returned. Chloe, I will atone for my sins. Ethan said this on the phone. Then the line went dead. I was a little confused, not quite sure what he meant by atonement.
It wasn't until the next day that I saw on Ethan's social media that he had posted 2 Jianding reports. One was a paternity test between Mia and Ethan, and the other was between Mia and Peter. The results showed that Mia had a paternal relationship with Peter, but not with Ethan. This dropped a bombshell. Claire's clarification was completely debunked as a lie. All the built-up heat and speculation from the past few days now turned into a torrent of abuse. And this plot twist, with a family member exposing their own, prompted many other influencers who had clashed with Claire to speak out. She's not just messing around with her adoptive father, you know. She seems to have a thing with the boss of her company, too. The reason I fought with her before was because she stole my spot at an event. This person has always been hard to stomach. In addition, Ethan's comment section was filled with mockery and ridicule about him being cuckolded. I sat at my computer, sipping my iced Americano. But when I saw this, my finger, scrolling through the screen, paused in surprise. Ethan was a traditional person at heart. He valued his family and his pride greatly. So I never expected him to tear open his family scandal for everyone to see. Perhaps the recent flood of truths was too much for him to bear. Now he had hit rock bottom and just didn't care anymore. Just then, as I stared at the blue background of my desktop, an idea came to me. I found a burner account I had bought before and used it to add Claire. By lunchtime, she still hadn't accepted. It wasn't until I changed my friend request message to, "I know how to help you," that Claire finally accepted. She was in a complete panic. As soon as I was added, she didn't even ask who I was, just how I could help her. I didn't beat around the bush.
Gather evidence and report Peter to the police for long-term assault. You must have proof, right? She hesitated for a moment, then replied, I do. Then say you were too young and too scared to resist, that you're traumatized and that you're still being threatened and assaulted by him now. But wouldn't that mean admitting Mia is Peter's child? I facepalmed in exasperation. Ethan's paternity test was already out. With such solid proof, how could she still be thinking about hiding it? The paternity test is out. There's no way to deny it. You can only admit that Peter forced you. Do you understand? Then will I get my account back? Claire immediately asked this question. Of course you can. You shift all the blame to Peter, making yourself the victim. The public's focus will shift. I had said enough, so I immediately deleted Claire and then deactivated the burner account. These past few days, there wasn't much development in Claire's case, but the NYC project was nearing an end. This was my first time handling a project hands-on, and with the guidance of my colleagues and seniors, I learned a lot. About 3 days later, after Claire's account mute was lifted, she immediately posted the police report and chat logs detailing Peter's long-term assault. There was even more concrete evidence dating back over a decade. The contents revealed that shortly after Peter and Anne adopted Claire, Peter began to assault her. At that time, Ethan was already living at school, so he was rarely home, which made Peter even more brazen. By the time Claire posted all this, Peter and Anne had already been taken in for investigation. Unfortunately, public opinion didn't shift as I told Claire it would, because her previous clarification had just been debunked by her own family. No one, neither online nor in real life, likes to be deceived. So this time, some netizens just simply didn't believe her, treating the whole thing just as another piece of gossip to consume. That day, after work, I finished my last file and went downstairs. The sky was already completely dark. I saw Julian leaning against his car by the company entrance, lost in thought. As I approached him, he looked up at me, his eyes tinged with fatigue. In truth, during the company's startup phase, he was the busiest one. I pulled out a bottle of milk I had just bought from the convenience store. Want some? He shook his head gently. No thanks. Ready to go? I'll give you a ride.
Okay. Julian drove in silence. When he stopped at a red light, he glanced at me in the rearview mirror. Was this all you're doing? Yes. Hearing this, a satisfied smile appeared on Julian's face. I leaned against the window, my mind racing with thoughts. There was one question I still couldn't figure out. Julian, I don't understand. In all these years, did Ethan never notice any of this? And a person like him would surely have doubted whether Mia was his daughter, right? Yes, any normal man would have gotten a test, to be sure. Then why did Ethan... Hearing my question, Julian frowned slightly. He was silent for a moment before speaking. Chloe, Ethan had a serious illness. The type of malignant tumor he had has a high chance of reoccurrence. Under those circumstances, what normal woman would be willing to be with him, let alone have a child? It didn't matter if Mia was his biological daughter or not, as long as she was his daughter in name. I nodded in sudden understanding. Right. I hadn't thought of that. As Julian said this, he rubbed his temples. Then he started the car. This project is almost wrapped up. You did a great job, Chloe. Get ready for the next one. Got it. Thank you, Mr. G. The day the NYC project ended, Claire's account was permanently banned. The reason cited was the negative public impact and mass reporting caused by her deceitful clarification. At the same time, the news of Peter being arrested for assaulting a minor made the Seattle news. Unexpectedly, Ethan's mother, Anne, was also investigated for child trafficking. I only learned the full story later. After the $150,000 was transferred to Ethan's account, the three of them had set their sights on the money. The Shin family was not wealthy.
They figured that if I knew Ethan was alive, I would eventually ask for the money back. So after he woke up, they lied to him, telling him I had run away. Then they instigated him to fake his death and send me an obituary. That way, I would never come looking for them and they could keep the $150,000. The day I found out the truth, I didn't feel much. This 5-year-long deception felt like a pain from a past life. Learning the truth now, it just felt ridiculous that the 5 years that had trapped me were born from such base greed. Before the new year, the verdict for Peter and Anne came out. For their respective crimes, both were sentenced to life in prison. As for Claire, after being banned from all platforms, the long-term stress and panic caused her to develop mental health issues. The day before she was admitted to a psychiatric hospital, she was still posting pictures of her designer bags on social media. As for Ethan, he quit his job and left Seattle with Mia. No one knew where he went. Before he left, Ethan sent me a message. I was browsing a night market with my colleagues when I received it. Holding a stick of candied hawthorn, I opened his text. It read, "Chloe, I hope that when I meet you in the next life, I'll have a healthy body. And I hope you'll still smile and take my hand, just like you did 10 years ago. I love you." I turned off my phone screen. I chewed on the hawthorn in my mouth, my feelings complicated. Winter in Seattle is so cold, but all I want is to live this life well.
On New Year's Eve, to celebrate the successful completion of the NYC project, Julian booked an entire floor for a company-wide celebration. My years of paying off debt alone had left me with stomach problems. For my health, I rarely drank anymore. But today, I was truly happy. I sat at the table, drinking glass after glass until I couldn't anymore. I laughed heartily with my colleagues, sharing funny stories about the project and office gossip. As I laughed, a sudden sourness pricked my nose. I stared at the amber bubbles in my glass. My mind drifted back to 3 months ago when I was wolfing down food in that hot pot restaurant with only a single yuan left in my pocket. Back then, I couldn't have imagined my life would change so drastically in such a short time. That I, the person crushed by guilt over Ethan's death and the frustration of unfulfilled ambitions, could stand on a brand new path. Drunk, I stumbled out of the restaurant. Suddenly, someone supported me from behind. I turned my head. It was Julian. "Mr. G, thank you." "Wait, I'll call a designated driver to take you home." No need. I can get a cab." Just as I said that, I failed to see a stone in front of me, stumbled, and nearly fell. Julian, who was supporting me, was almost pulled down with me. Just then, a wallet fell from Julian's pocket. Its contents scattered all over the ground. Among a pile of bank cards, a slightly faded photograph caught my attention. I crouched down. I picked up the photo to take a look. It was the back of a girl. She was wearing a school uniform, but I recognized myself from the chestnut-colored hair. I looked up, dazed, and said to Julian with a laugh, "Julian, you really hold a grudge. Just because we had one fight in high school, you're gonna hold it against me and keep my photo until now?" Hearing this, Julian's expression grew complex. Finally, he seemed to be amused by my drunken state. He tugged at the corner of his mouth and chuckled. "You idiot.